Hey Flosstube, it's Stephanie. I am back, not with my regular update. I will be doing that one probably next week. But I'm here today because I've had some people ask me if I would do a beading tutorial after seeing my carriage piece. And so that's what this is. And I'm going to just kind of talk you through a couple of things, and then I will actually show you placing the beads and stitching and that kind of stuff. So I just want to tell you first of all, and part of this, well, all of it is what I learned by doing and the mistakes that I made. So I am stitching my carriage piece on 18 count Aida. When I initially planned to stitch it, I wanted to stitch it on 24 count Congress cloth. Congress cloth it's used mostly in counted needlepoint, but it's my favorite thing to stitch on. I love it. And so I really wanted to stitch, when I found this pattern to stitch, I wanted to stitch it on Congress cloth. And I actually got this really pretty white Congress cloth with metallic specks in it and everything. And when the fabric came, then I had bought size 11 and size 15 beads because I wasn't entirely sure which size I was going to need. And I started with the size 15 beads because I could tell just by looking at the size 11 against the fabric that they were too big. And so I went to the size 15 and started putting them in, and very quickly found that they were too big for the 24 count. And by the time I hit 5 or 6 beads, it was covering the next hole. And so I knew the Congress cloth wasn't going to work. So I tried the 18 count canvas, which then the more that I thought about it, I realized that when I have taken counted needlepoint classes, and the ones I've taken where I have learned beading, or where I initially learned beading, were on 18 count canvas. And I learned beading from a brilliant teacher named Nancy Cucci. And she does counted needlepoint pieces that always have beads in them, and they are gorgeous. And she made me fall in love with beading from the first class that I took. And so a lot of the things I'm going to show you are things that come from Nancy, just because she's the one who taught me how to do beading. And so I realized that the classes I took, it was on 18 count canvas. So I pulled out a piece of 18 count Aida and put in the 15s, and they were fine. So they would sit right next to each other. They fit really nicely. On my pattern, it has, I thought I had a picture of the pattern with me, but I don't think I do. It has wheels. It has 2 big carriage wheels, one on each side. And so I had the big bright idea of, well, I'll use the size 11s for the outside of the wheels just to differentiate. They don't have that many in a row. And I'll save those for the wheels. Well, when I started on the wheels, it didn't take very long before I saw that the 11s weren't going to work on 15 either. There are certain parts where it has a few beads across, and then it has the spokes of the wheel, and they just don't fit. I was having the same problem. So my recommendation is, when you choose your fabric, whatever you choose, 18, 16, 14, then before you start stitching, just put in 5 or 6, 7, 8 beads in a row and make sure that they can sit next to each other. And if not, you're going to have to drop a size down on the beads. So I don't know the size of beads for 14 to 16 because I haven't tried it yet. I'm going to guess 16 you probably are going to use a 15 bead too. 14 you might be able to use a size 11, but I'm not sure. But put them on there, test them out, and it will not take you long to realize if the bead is going to work or not. The other thing I do is when you choose your pattern, and choose your beads, change the colors, don't change the colors, it's your choice. I changed mine just slightly. My pattern showed that the decoration, the wheels, I don't know what you call that, the script almost looking is in red, and I didn't want mine to be red. I didn't want the carriage to be red and green. I didn't want it to look like Christmas. And so I changed mine to pink. But it actually looks pink in the picture, but so I just go on my pattern and write next to the symbol what color bead that I'm using, just to track it. I have one that I'm going to do it's an Alessandra Adelaide, and it's a Halloween pattern that has a big witch's brew pot and all these colors coming out of the top, and so that one's going to have a lot of colors, so I'm definitely going to need to track that one. So just write next to the symbol what color bead you're using, and then you want to choose the thread that you're going to anchor it down with to match the bead, or not match the bead, and I'll explain that when I'm actually doing the stitching. But I use metallic threads to anchor because it gives the bead more shine, and I like shine. I'm about bling, and so the shinier the better. So I anchor with metallic thread, and the bead's already shiny, but if it's anchored with a metallic thread, then it will pick up more shine to it. And then, so I do that. I use a size 4 Kreinik. You can use a size 8 Kreinik if it will go through your beads. And it depends on the bead, really. You know, the beads, even though it's a size 15, the holes in the beads are different sizes sometimes. So it's kind of a give and take. And I match the thread going through as close as I can to the bead. I did on my carriage anyway. And you can also use silk lame will work, anything like that. I'm trying to think what else I've seen used. So just give it a test, or if you don't want to give it more shine, use floss, 2 strands of floss through the bead. That will hold it. But then, no matter what you use, well, if you use floss, then you already have the matching floss. If you use metallic threads, you also need to get a floss, just a DMC or anchor or something like that, that matches. Because once you place the bead, you're going to go back and loop around it with the floss to hold the bead in place, just to make sure it stays there and doesn't droop. When I first started doing beading, I said to Nancy in class, I have droopy beads, and they were just kind of hanging. They looked a little bit sad. And so by anchoring them, it keeps them sitting on top of the fabric. I do it like I'm a bead. And it will stay sitting on top of the fabric, and they'll looping it will hold it in place. And I'll show you how to do that. But so just get some embroidery floss that also matches, just so you have it for the looping. And then you also, this is one thing, it's you know, part of the fun of stitching is the toys, right? And here's a toy. But you can get this at your LNS, or if you don't have one near you, or for maybe for some reason they don't carry it, or you can order it on Amazon. I've gotten them from there too. But this is called a sticky bead mat by Beadsmith. And my LNS has them for $5. So I have a habit of picking one up every time I'm in there because I think I need it, and I really don't, but I buy one anyway. But it's sticky. It's sticky on the top, and it's actually sticky on the back. And it will hold your beads as you're stitching. And it'll sit on your fabric. It won't hurt your fabric. It'll sit on your fabric. And then eventually it collects dust. You know, where I live, I have a lot of dust. And it will collect dust over time, and as it does, you know, it takes the sticky away. All you have to do is run it underwater. Run it underwater, give it a little wipe with a cloth, let it dry, and it's sticky again. It is cool. It's crazy. It really works. But they are cheap, and they work. And I like this one because of the size. It's big, and it will hold a lot of beads on it. So, but your LNS, buy it there. If you can't find it there, you can get them on Amazon or something like that. But give the business to your LNS if you can. And I think I've seen them just about everywhere. So they're pretty common. But it's the Sticky Bead Mat by Beadsmith. They also have something called a tacky bob. It's the same thing. Well, I've never used a tacky bob, so I can't say it's exactly the same. But that's what it is. That's what a tacky bob is. But so this works great. And then you want to have a frame or a stand or something to hold your fabric, because you want both your hands free. And or when I sit, this is the chair that I sit in to stitch, and I have a table sitting in front of me. We keep the computer on it, and we eat dinner on it, and that kind of stuff. So if I'm sitting here, I just lean my fabric in my frame against the table, so I have both hands free, but something to hold it, to lean against, or something. The using a framework's the best, and it just so that you have both of your hands and you're not having to fight your fabric too. So I definitely recommend that. And then one thing, it's optional, but I find that I use it more and more, is a laying tool, and preferably a laying tool with a point on it. And also you can get these at your LNS. They have them as well. And I will show you during the actual stitching part what this is for. And someone has asked me, I talked about a laying tool on one of my other videos, and someone's asked me to do a tutorial of a laying tool, and I will, because I think this is one of the best tools that you can have in your stitching tools. I think this is essential. They're not expensive, and I think it's the greatest thing you have. And I wave it around all the time. When I'm stitching and talking to people, I'm waving around, and people are like, hey, yeah, you're waving that around, because it's sharp, it hurts. I've not stabbed anybody yet, though. Stabbed myself, but I've not stabbed anybody else, I'm happy to report. But I will show you during the stitching what this is for. But if you have one, I recommend having it handy when you're doing your beading. And if you see one in an LNS, pick one up. This one I ordered from Nordic Needle, I think, is who I got it from. And because my LNS didn't have it at the time, they carry them now though. And but it's handy to have, and you'll see why in a little bit. So I think that's it. I hope I have covered everything. And the beads, again, I order my beads from Bello Moto online, and especially, frighteningly enough, we're not that far away from the holidays coming, and they have a lot of sales during the holidays, so be ready for that. Like, sign up for their newsletter or something so that you get it. But they're great, and that's who I order all my beads from, and I love them. I love their customer service and everything, so that's who I get my beads from. And I buy some at my LNS too, but they don't often have what I need. They don't have a very large selection, so I do find that I have to order them a lot. So I think that's it. So I hope that this video is helpful to you. We will get on to the stitching, and I hope you enjoy it. See you in a minute. Okay, so here we are. I've got my fabric up on the frame. It's in Q-snaps, and then it's attached to the frame. It's a System 4 stand, so, but any will work. Again, the key is just hands-free. Whatever you can do to have both of your hands available to do this, I think is the best option. So, and I've got my beadsmith here, my mat that's sticky, ready for my beads. The parts I'm going to show you is we're going to do a little bit up here. So there's green beads in here and there's gold beads in here. So I just take my bead tube here and I just dump a little bit out onto the mat. And I personally I smooth them out so that it's all one layer, because it'll come out in a little bit of a pile. And so I just smooth it out just because it is sitting at a slant, so I don't want them to roll off. And then I'm gonna put, these are the gold beads right here. So I'm gonna put just a few of the gold beads on here too. And you know, I try and put on just about as many as I'm gonna use, but sometimes it sits for a few days with beads on it and it's fine. It won't hurt it. So, and then I have my chart here, my pattern, and I've covered up most of the pattern because I don't want to show the whole pattern. But this is the part we're going to be working on right here. And if you see on this pattern, the black squares are the gold beads, and then the other symbol, which looks like it has a little loop in it, or the black is the green beads, and the one that it has the little loop in it is the gold beads. So, and I chose this because I want to show you what it looks like when they're all packed in there like that. And also these gold ones are going to kind of hang out there for a little bit till I get the gold in. And you can kind of see up here they hang out there by themselves completely. So I just want to kind of give you an example of both of them. So one of the things, and I've drawn these little dots here to show you how I stitch them. And I stitch them, and again, this is my personal technique. If there's some way that you want to do your own, that's fine. I've just found that this works really well for me. And I stitch it so that there's a long stitch on the back of the fabric. You know how sometimes when we cross stitch and we just go down and then go up in the next one and go down and go up in the next one. And I stitch it so that I come up in this hole right here and then go down in this one. And then I come up in this one and go down in this one. And what it's doing on the back is it's always making a long stitch across here. And I think that secures the bead more. I've just found that from my own personal experience. Even the beads that stand out by themselves, as much as I can, that's how I stitch them. If it's going up and down, I go up. Go back over here. I'm kind of new at this, so bear with me, please. I'll go up here and then down in this one, and then up in this one and down in this one, so that I'm making a long stitch across the back like that. And I just think it holds the bead tighter. That's just been my personal experience. If it only has that little stitch on the back, I just don't think it holds the bead very tightly. So and so that's how I do the stitches. And I try not to, when I do this, I try not to carry threads across the back if I can avoid it too far, because I don't know, especially because I use metallic threads, I don't know how much it's going to show up. So I try not to do that too much if I can avoid it. I'd rather, you know, tie it off and start again and just use a little bit more thread. So so I'm going to start with the green, and I'm using, for the gold and the green, I'm using size 4 Krynic, and it goes through the bead nicely. You couldn't do 2 passes through the bead, it's not thick enough, and so, or the bead's not big enough. So I use the size 4 and it works just fine. You can use a size 8 too. I haven't had a problem with the 4, so I go with it. For the pink beads down here and around here, I'm actually using a petite silk lame, and I really like it. I probably will use more silk lame in the future because it's working really nicely. So, okay, so I'm gonna look at my little chart here, and I'm just gonna put them in. Okay, so if I came across like this, I'll just pull these out later. I'm going to very quickly grab my light because I can't see very well in this light. So there, that's better. Now I can see better. Okay, so I'm coming up in the hole right here. You can see. I'll zoom in on that a little bit so you can kind of see what I'm doing here. Let me. So I come up through the bottom hole, use my needle to pick up a bead off my mat, and go in through the top. And you know, sometimes the bead is too small, and that's when I find out, is when I try and pull it through, the bead gets caught on the end of the needle, it won't pull the thread through, and then I just throw it away. The green, in this project with the green and the gold, I'm not having too much of a problem with that. The pink one, it's terrible, but they look so pretty that I'm fighting through it. So, but you know, just give it a try. Don't be surprised if you have to throw some away just because they're too small. Nothing will go through it. So once I have it down, then I just use my fingernail to make sure it's sitting on top of the fabric, and I can kind of tell because of the shine of the bead. And when it's sitting right on top of the fabric, the bead will really shine. And so I just come up in the next hole, and this is where you'll find, like I was saying before, to try 5 or 6 or 7 of them in a row to see if that size bead will work. Because in this case, once I hit 5 or 6, it's covering the next hole, so I knew the bead was too big. So just go down in the next hole, and so I've made the long stitch across the back, and if it will go in, not right in the hole exactly, but doing it with my left hand definitely doesn't work. There we go. And then I just use my fingernail to push it into place. If there were another row of beads below it, it would just sit right in there. But I just use my fingernail, or I use, this is where my laying tool comes in one of the places actually, because I'll just use my laying tool to push it into place so that they're even. The ones that stand alone, if they're not sitting exactly on top of the forgot to get a bead. If they're not sitting completely on top of the fabric evenly, when you go to loop them, which I'll show you in just a second, it'll pull them to the top anyway to tighten them. And they'll stay right in place. But like I said, I just think that the long stitch on the back holds them in place. So here, we'll do one more and then I'll show you the gold. Take one more. And once you get into a rhythm, you know, it works really well. And it just kind of falls right into place, you know, and you're just following your pattern, just as if this were a piece of floss. You just follow your pattern with how many to put in. So now if I go to the gold, I'm going to put them in a diagonal just so that you can see them hanging, that they're hanging out there, so to speak. I'm going to go back through my fabric here. Just so you know, it still works much the same way though. This I'm going to go in the opposite direction going down, but it's still, however, you can kind of figure it out as you go. However you need to do it to put that long stitch across the back. Do it, see, like, so this one I'm going bottom to top, to bottom right to top left. And say my pattern calls for me to go 1 over. I'm still going to go, so I'm going to go 1 over, but I'm still going to go to the bottom left. And once I pull it through, I just use my needle, my finger, whatever works best, and just make sure it's sitting right on top. Follow the shine of the bead, and that will tell you. If you're, you know, magnifiers work well too. You can see if it's sitting, is it sitting on its side or something like that. So I'll pull that through, and then you can see it'll start to, here we'll do one more. It will start to make a diagonal. So it's a little hard because I'm standing off to the side so that you can get a better shot of the canvas. But, and I will warn you, it is addicting. It is addicting. I love it. I have a number of patterns to do this for. Oh, and one more thing I forgot to mention about the beadsmith. It's sitting here on my fabric. The other side is sticky too, but just to make sure that it stays, I do just attach it on with a needle minder. And what's nice about it is that I can turn it, because as I get up here, I want to keep my beads as close as I can, so I can turn it, or because it's on the needle minder, the back is sticky because I just washed it, I can just slide it, and so it moves around. It won't leave your fabric sticky. It's not that sticky. But I move around. I do just hold it on with a needle minder just so that it stays in place. And then the other thing that I want to show you is down here, and I'm going to show you how to loop it once the beads are in. On this piece right now, I'm in the process of looping the pink. And I do it for a little bit and then I put more beads in. I just have to kind of remember where I am. Let me just move this around a little. Hopefully that will stay. And this is just embroidery floss. It's embroidery floss that I got to match the beads. And you use 2 strands of embroidery floss. And I gotta put a needle on here. It doesn't have a needle on it. And you only have to loop it once, or wrap it. I think it's called, people call it wrapping. And you only have to wrap it once. And again, with this, I do the long stitch in the back. It just makes it stronger. So if I'm in the bottom of this bead right here, and I'm heading in this direction. I'm coming back down this way. Let me move the light to the other side so you can see. So I'm on this bead right here, and I'm going this way. And you can kind of see, because these stand out, they're a little bit long. These are in there. They're not going anywhere. So I don't have to go through and loop these. I will go and loop the edge, though. So, but these that are sitting in here don't have to. These all in here, these are already done, actually. And the wheel is done. I've done the outside of the wheel. But if they're standing, if they don't have something around them, then I think you do need to secure them. You can see on this one, if I move it with my needle, it's a little bit loose. And just so that the beads don't fall off down the road. And so I've come up in the bottom right corner again. And I do this ahead of time. And you split the floss, go down I'm in the bottom right, I'm going down in the top left. And this is where my laying tool, I use a laying tool. It comes in very handy. As I go down, I just use my laying tool to make sure it stays apart. And kind of put it in the hole, you know, I just keep it over the top of the bead so that it goes around. And the thread, one will go on each side of the bead. If something happens and you put it in and you've goofed and both threads went on one side, then do it again to make sure it gets the loop around it. But that's why I like the laying tool, is I think that it just helps. It helps to control it a little bit more. And now you can see, now that I've done it, I'm pulling on the thread on the back, but that bead is tight now. It's not going to come off. I mean, once it gets framed, you know, it's not that much of a concern, but the beads can still fall off. I mean, I've had people say to me about this one, well, how are you going to frame it? The beads are really heavy. And I'm not quite sure about that answer yet, but we'll see. But if I go here and loop it around, and and for the gold, I use, I've just got a real pale yellow floss. That's what I'm using. It actually blends really well with the background. And once it loops around and you pull it through, you don't see the floss. It's down wrapped around the bead and holding the bead. And so you don't even see it anyway, but it's a good idea to match it just in case. And even like this one has 2 in a row that I'm wrapping all of them. They just don't have enough around them. But these here, they're not going anywhere. So I think hopefully that answers your questions, and that you find some patterns that you want to do this. It's really, really fun, and they're really beautiful. I'm surprised at how pretty it comes out. Very sparkly. If you put the metallic thread through the bead, that's a secret I learned from Nancy Cucci. Whatever thread you put through the bead will affect the color of the bead. I did one piece that I will show in one of my videos sometime. Actually, it came out kind of cool. That it was a green bead, but I wanted it to be a little bit darker. And so I put black metallic thread through it, and it darkened the bead. but still gave the shine. So you can change the color of the bead. These being so pale, if I put a real dark I could put a metallic red through there, or even a dark pink, or even a blue maybe. It will change the color of the bead. So you can kind of play around with them. If you have an iridescent clear bead, it will take on whatever color you're putting through there. So it's really up to you and how you want to do it. So I hope that this video helped. If you have any questions, then definitely let me know, and I'm happy to help as much as I can. And I hope that you enjoy this. I hope you tackle it. It's a lot of fun. So thanks so much for watching. Talk to you soon. Bye.